Could be a rumble of thunder as well. I'm afraid it is cooler and fresher than yesterday with a top temperature of 20 Celsius.
Pop up here and there. Who's she to talk? She popped up in the middle of the cricket.
Have lunch with Allan Beswick.
Good day to you. Hiya. I've got a question for you. I think it's a perfectly valid question. We touched on it yesterday. It's a perfectly valid... No, not the one about why didn't the stupid old motorcyclist just stop? He'd still be alive today. What was he running from? Did he not see the caravan of police cars and vans and helicopters and planes chasing him? Did he not notice them? In which case he shouldn't be riding a motorbike. Shouldn't be allowed out on his own if he didn't notice them. I don't know. The guy's dead. But why didn't he stop? Why didn't he stop? If I'm in my car and a police officer asks me to stop, I do. If I'm in my car and a police car comes behind me with its lights flashing, I stop. Even though I suspect it's not related to me, he's just trying to get past, going somewhere in a hurry, I still stop. So, one question. Yeah, it's quite right that we examine why so much police resource was put into chasing a bloke who all he'd done was fail to stop. But failing to stop is the starting point of what's the beggar got to hide. Now, I'm not suggesting he's got anything to hide. But if I was a policeman and I asked a person on a motor vehicle to stop and they didn't, I would wonder. And if when I got behind them with all my lights flashing, they still didn't stop, I'd get my mates involved. Because he might be a terrorist. He might be a bank robber. He might be a murderer. He might have Madeleine McCann in a satchel on his back. But if they don't stop, I'd want to know why. And the only way I'm going to find out is to follow them. That's the job of the coppers. And if those, and it's being suggested in the newspapers today, that the officers were told to pull off, and if they were, then they should have done. So that's something that's got to be dealt with. That's a disciplinary matter for the police, and we shall wait and see the outcome of that. But we're still left with the question, why didn't the old bloke straddle... I say old bloke, he's younger than me. Why didn't the grandad straddle the motorcycle stop? He is contributory, and I know his 5 kids will be striking their eyes out, his widow will be striking their eyes out, and his grandchildren will be striking their eyes out. But I'm sorry, somebody's got to point to it and say, oi! He was the author of his own downfall. Possibly. It's a fair question. Anyway, that's not the question I've got for you. I've got another one. Radio Manchester, this is an answer. How do I get in touch, Alan? Here's the answer. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. The text number 07786 206 951. The telephone number, our preferred method of communication, but it's not exclusive, 0161228 2255.
John Thompson in a world of his own.
You hear that rustle there? That's the sound of a Wednesday matinee at the Royal Exchange. It's just old ladies going, do you want to leave? My mate said the actor was on stage doing a particularly poignant scene and he overheard 2 old ladies chatting. And one said, so, what do you think? And the other one turned to the other and went, well, it's better than standing in the wet.
John Thompson.
Vegetarian bacon. Yeah, but apparently that's made from strawberries. That's what I've been told. It's weird, isn't it? I once had a porkless pie from on the 8th day. Porkless pie? Yeah, I lifted the crust, there's nothing in it.
John Thompson's take on the world.
If you look at the reviews, everybody says it is just unbelievable.
Saturday from 11 on BBC Radio Manchester.
So I said I've got a question for you. And it's a question that's been asked recently. It was asked yesterday on here, but not specifically. How much a week is life worth? How much a week is life worth? Well, we've just had the decision. We heard about one local case yesterday, the woman who was denied drugs for her particular form of cancer. I think it was a kidney cancer, but I can't remember now. But she was refused drugs for her cancer at the cost of Salford Healthcare Trust, and is outraged because the indications are that if she was permitted to have the drug, her life would be extended. She wouldn't go on to die a natural death in her sleep at 92, but her life would be extended. We have the story this morning that NICE, the institute required by the government to decide what drugs will and will not be available, the criteria they have to use are efficaciousness. That's it. Are they, not just are they efficient, in other words, do they work, but are they worth using? Now, the criteria is, will it keep people alive? Will it cure them? If it will cure them, and they won't have their illness, whatever it might be, again, unless they are unfortunate, but that particular bout of the illness will be cured, then fine. Let's have the drug. But what about if it just extends their life? As I say, if it extends it so that their illness lives longer than they do, in other words, you're going to die at some point, we all are, you're going to die at some point, but your illness won't be the thing that kills you because we've treated you, then fine. But what if it extends your life by a week, a fortnight, a month, 6 months? How much should we, the population, be prepared to pay to keep somebody alive that bit longer? If they're going to die of the condition anyway, how much is it worth? What do you say? I don't know what it's worth. The answer is, if it's me or mine, it's worth every penny the National Health Service has got. But we don't run society like that. We don't run it that way. Perhaps we should, I don't know, but we don't. We say, well, hang on a minute. Life isn't as precious as that to strangers, is it? So how precious is it? How much do you think the National Health Service should be prepared to spend to keep somebody alive, not for a week on a life support machine because they might recover sufficiently for them to fight back, using the modern parlance, which I actually hate, but for them to recover sufficiently for the machine to be turned off and they, using their own natural resistance to disease and the like, to recover and go on and have a full and fruitful life, unfettered by the condition they're currently enduring. Not that. Not on about that. I'm on about keeping them alive so that they can die of the condition a few months later. What's that worth? We've all experienced it, not ourselves, obviously. We've all experienced it with friends, relatives, acquaintances, where they've been told, well, you've got 6 months to live, we can give you this drug, it'll cost £10,000 a week, and you'll have 8 months to live. Is it worth it? Well, that's what NICE has to decide. What do you say? 0161 228 2255 if you've got a view on that. You can, of course, talk about anything, you know me. I'll let you talk about out. You make the subjects, I make the noise. 0161 228 2255. Denise says, and we hear this a lot, if there's enough in the pot to pay for the treatment of national health tourists, then there should be enough in the pot for all the indigenous tax-paying patients, whatever their needs and cost. So says Denise. What do you say? 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And, of course, it's dead easy. You can text on 07786 206 951. Ace talking about the motorcyclist who died in a road traffic accident whilst being followed by a posse of police officers, says, bloody hell, Alan, for once I'm in agreement with you. If you've got nothing to hide when a policeman asks you to pull over, you should. End of story. He also says the woman with the drug problems should point out that Brown and his gang are going to waste £7 million on a jaunt to China for the Games. Why not send fewer politicians to China and save a few quid? Well, why send any politicians is, as far as I'm concerned, a good question. David says the answer to the question, how much per week is life worth, is almost certainly it depends on who's paying. David in Sale, you're dead right. It does depend on who's paying. If you're a multimillionaire, a billionaire, and it's your money, and it's money that you'll be leaving behind when you're gone anyway, it doesn't matter. Pay whatever it costs. What if it's somebody else's money? Well, if they're, again, prepared to say forget it. But with the National Health Service, every penny the National Health Service pays comes out of tax. Every penny it spends keeping somebody alive for another couple of months is money that it can't spend curing somebody else. It isn't a bottomless pit. So how much? What's the number? Is it worth £10,000 a week, a year, a day, a millennia? I don't know. Do you? 0161 228 2255. David says, nice. What is it with this? I know people do not want to die, but we all have to accept it. How can we ask the government to pay doctors and drunk companies vast amounts of money in an attempt to keep us alive? I'm a bit of a hypocrite as I had a stroke and other things, but I try to take as little out of the system as possible. I'm over 60, and for the last 50 years I think I've put something into the system. However, I would never expect the young people of today to spend a vast amount of their time and lives to keep me alive. All we have to give in this life is our time and effort to do what is right. Do it willingly, says David. Well, OK, I understand the do it willingly and all the rest of it, but that doesn't tell us whether we should do it at all cost. Yes, people will say, yeah, go on, spend it. It's only 50,000 quid. 50,000 quid out the National Health budget. It's nothing. Well, you're right, it's an insignificant sum of the National Health budget. But 150,000 quid, well, that's 500,000. 1,050,000, you know where I'm going with this. You're starting to look at a very substantial amount of money. Should it be spent just keeping people alive for a few more months? Their relatives will be glad of it. Will anybody else? Brian says, Alan, I'll tell you why the motorcyclist probably didn't stop. He knows as well as most motorcyclists that their chance of escaping a police pursuit is much better than a car driver's because they can drive their machine down narrow alleyways, across fields and pavements, quickly U-turn and the like to escape. If a motorcyclist has no insurance and is disqualified from driving, has no licence or is drunk, then any subsequent penalty for not stopping is minor compared to the very real chance that they will escape. The risk is therefore worth it. Well, we don't know the circumstances of this individual. We don't know whether this individual was guilty of all of those things you suggest. He may have been perfectly innocent. He may have been perfectly innocent. However, we're still in the position of why didn't he stop? And more importantly, much more importantly, what do you want a police officer to do? Police officer, during the course of his working day, in an ordinary situation, asks a motorist, a motorcyclist in this case, asks him to stop. If he doesn't, what do you want the copper to do next? Do you want the copper to say, well, oh, well, fair enough? Or do you want the copper to pursue him to find out why he didn't stop? And if the answer is, I want him to pursue him, well, with what vigour? Do you want him to chase him for a mile, for 10 miles, for 3 miles? Do you want to chase him? Do you want him to chase him in such a way as to create the opportunity to catch him? Do you want him to invoke the the forces of his colleagues to join in the chase to try to catch the person? When does the copper think, oh, sod it? Sod it. He's definitely not going to stop. See, if he doesn't stop after a minute of chasing, well, OK, you give up. If he doesn't stop after 5 minutes of chasing, you give up. But a bloke that's prepared to evade capture for 5 minutes is likely to be guilty of something rather bad, whereas the bloke that doesn't stop at the first time of asking might simply have not noticed the copper. He should have done, but he might simply have not noticed him. So these are fair questions, aren't they? Why didn't he stop? That would be my first question in any investigation. 0161 228 2255. Ted in Moston says, how much is life worth? It depends on who it was. If it was a little old woman, then yes, of course, extend her life as much as possible. If it was Ian Brady, no, let the bugger die. That's Ted in Moston. Well, how much do you want to spend keeping a little old woman alive? Let us work on the presumption that she's 99. Well, the chances are if you give her every drug in the world, she'll be dead tomorrow. Because at 99, the chances are you'll be dead tomorrow. That's just the way life is. It's 12:20. News headlines. Michelle Adamson.
Cancer charities and doctors have criticised a decision to deny new treatments to NHS patients with advanced kidney cancer. The funeral's taking place this afternoon of a 4-year-old girl who was killed in a house fire in Bolton. An investigation into the death of a biker in Tameside after a police chase is to be led by the Independent Police Complaints Commission. Manchester's weather, dry, sunny spells, but also some scattered showers this afternoon, highs of 20 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
Taking a quick peek firstly to the M6, and barrier repair works are still underway at the moment at junction 19 at Knutsford, with matrix signs set at 50 miles per hour, although traffic seems to be coping fairly well. Recovery works complete on the M60 clockwise. Lorry broken down earlier today between 10 at the Trafford Centre and 11 Barton, but again all back to normal there now. If, however, you're heading through Northwich, Middlewich Road still closed because of a collision between King Street and West Avenue after a car and a motorbike collided at around about 9:30 this morning. Don't forget as well, if you're using the trains, there's a replacement bus service between Chorley and Preston due to ongoing engineering works. Through services are able to run between Manchester and Preston, but are diverted off the usual route and therefore unable to call at Chorley. Don't forget, if you can update me further though, call in on the travel line. The number's 01612 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
Decongesting Manchester, one car at a time. 2020 traffic.
Dave in St Helens. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Alan. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Alan, it was just regarding, this drug treatment that people are sort of getting denied, because of funding, whatever, on the NHS But it causes concern when I think of what they do for drug dealers. Now, all right, drug dealers are drug dealers. They do what they do. But drug dealers and drunks now seem to get preferential treatment over anything. And basically, for me, that's self-inflicted. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. And they seem to get that many cases, whether it be on the news or in the newspapers, that, drug dealers get all these rehabs, they get houses, they get put back into society. And most of them don't actually come off it. I don't know if they do or what, but this is the feeling I'm getting. And it's becoming more and more prominent in the UK that, at one time it was sort of a low percentage on them. Now it seems to be everybody's doing it. And yet they can go to the GP, they can go to hospital, don't work and get everything done for them. It just doesn't add up that somebody who has a rare disease or whatever it is, which is not self-inflicted, are denied all the total treatment. I just find it amusing.
Well, they're not denied total treatment. Most people who present themselves to the medicos get treated in the best way possible. Yeah. There are some people, and we're hearing about them today, and we heard about one specific one in Greater Manchester yesterday, who are told, look, we can't afford that drug. We can't afford to pay the price you're asking us to pay to give you 2 months of life.
Right.
Your two months of your life is not worth that much to us.
But a drug dealer can do what he wants.
Well, you keep saying drug dealer. I think you probably
drink alcoholics.
Well, I wasn't going to pull you up on the particular addiction. You say a drug dealer. I think you probably
drug taker. Sorry,
that's why I was going that way.
Sorry,
let me just put the question to you in a general way, first of all, a general question, because you rightly point out that alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and if we start getting into fat people and thin people, then food abuse, they are self-inflicted injuries without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
Now, here's a question for you. Should the hospital at which the patient presents take into consideration whether the person sustained their condition voluntarily, if you like, in a self-inflicted way?
Yeah.
Should they? Should that be a consideration for...
Well, it comes back to going off the subject, but still on the same. The girl, I don't know if you've read, there's a girl in Crete, she's sort of come off back of a motorbike and smashed her skull in, and she's on a life support machine or whatever, and blah, blah. The insurance company are denying her, obviously, the privilege, and rightfully so,
Well, we'll come on to that in a minute. But the insurance company, and I've never met an insurance company that wasn't this, is just a bunch of bookmakers. They're just Johnny Jibby, the 2-to-1 off shot, the 2-to-1 off punt at Haydock. That's all insurance companies are. They're just bookmakers. Do you really want the National Health Service run on the same principle as a load of bookies?
No, what I'm saying is, there's rightfully so. Do you agree that if there's terms and conditions with everything, then they abide by the terms and conditions?
Yes, but we're still...
on the insurance, it's very much...
But that's not taken us to... yes is the simple answer to that, but that hasn't taken us to the nub of the question. Do you think people who present themselves to the medical profession, to the National Health Service, via whatever outlet, with a self-inflicted injury, that the process by which they got the injury should affect their treatment?
Well, no, I think if you were to go in hospital as to be treated by a GP and say, you've got...
No, don't. Dave, the question's simple. You referred to, when you're talking about drug abusers and talking about alcoholics, and I threw into the bundle food abusers as well. These are people who are knowingly abusing their bodies.
Right.
My question is, should the medicos take that into consideration when they decide to treat them or not?
Well, it's a very difficult catch-22 situation.
Well, it's what you presented it, Dave, not me. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just wondering how far you extend it.
I don't know. Well, I haven't got the answers to it, Alan. But again, I do stress that where, as a panel, got a decision to say, all right, it's on funding. Where do they say that this particular drug doesn't become available because we can't afford it? But yet, for somebody who is an alcoholic or a drug dependent user, can get whatever he wants.
Well, no, he can't. Well, no, he can't, because if, for example, because drug abusers and alcoholics and food abusers suffer all the conditions that we suffer, those of us who don't have those particular vices, but they suffer them anyway. Just because you're an alcoholic doesn't mean you don't get flu. Just because you're an alcoholic doesn't mean you don't get hit by a car. Just because you're an alcoholic doesn't mean you don't get cancer. You're an alcoholic, you can only have alcohol-related conditions then. So if an alcoholic was lying in his hospital bed and he was being treated or needed to be treated for cancer with a very expensive drug that would actually extend his life by 2 months and not 20 years, then he'd get the same. So there wouldn't be preferential treatment for that person. He would get the same treatment that anybody else would get in his position. So the question comes down to, how much are we prepared to pay as a society to keep a person alive for another 2 months so that they can die of the condition we're treating them for?
Yeah, I understand the dilemma and the situation. I think if you ask the majority of people who are listening now on your programme about what I've just said about the drug abusers and what would they have a preference to do? Give it to them or give it to somebody who's denied something that, through no fault of their own, comes along and they're denied treatment? So
let us presume you are...
we can go on all day about it.
Dave, let us presume you are correct. I don't know, but let us presume you're correct. And the majority says no. Doctors should not be treating... If they've got to ration healthcare, they ration it away from those who present with self-inflicted injuries. Does that include rugby players who get smashed to bits every week? Does that include football players, squash players?
Well, again,
does that include joggers?
I think we'll be very much come down the line, as we always do, the American way. And I think eventually, I don't know, probably not in my time and probably not in your time, but I think in years to come, we will have private health care that you've got to get yourself, and something that will... And
do you
yes,
think
I am proud of the NHS.
Because we did have that. So your prediction is that the NHS will die?
I'm sure there'll be some conditions brought into it, as there is now, with the panels that obviously make this decision that, no, we can't have that drug, because why? Because we can't afford it. And George, 10 of them on a panel say 9 of them agree and 1 disagree. So you're never going to get, the right decision, whether it be right or not. I just personally think my feelings towards somebody not getting treated who is not self-inflicted, problem that they have and denied of it, I don't know. I think it's morally wrong somewhere. I don't know. It may be my sort of beliefs or whatever, I don't know, but...
No wrong with that, Dave. You're entitled to them, mate. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
And you, mate.
0161 228 2255. As you know, we're skedaddling about the place, giving you the opportunity to express your view about the forthcoming congestion charge, or the possible congestion charge. Well, today, Matt Trewern is out and about, is in Trafford. He's actually, at the moment, at the Trafford Centre. Matt?
Yep, at the Trafford Centre on a glorious sunny day.
Which bit of it? Because it takes some tracking down at the Trafford Centre. Whereabouts are you if people want to bob in?
I'm on the ground floor, and I'm by the information point outside Dorothy Perkins.
Oh, no, well, don't look in the window, you'll go blind. In the meantime, what have people been saying thus far?
Yeah, well, a lot of different views, really. It's an interesting kind of patch, Trafford. A lot of official opposition to the plans here. Owners of the Trafford Centre itself, of course, Peel Holdings, they haven't been shy in voicing their opposition. The Tory-led Trafford Council are also against the idea, although just down the road, some of the big-name companies on Trafford Park have given their support. But we want to know what you think. We'll be hearing from what you've been telling me in just a moment. But first of all, let's hear what public transport improvements are you being promised here in Trafford.
Manchester's congestion charge station is BBC Radio Manchester.
So if you live in Trafford, here's how it's looking. Cash from the congestion charge would mean you'll get trams to the Trafford Centre and Trafford Park, as well as a Metrolink to Manchester Airport via Furswood and Salemore. You'll also see trams doubled at peak times, meaning space for 200 more people per trip. Train stations at Altrincham, Hale and Flixton will be renovated and updated. You'll see more CCTV, interactive transport signs and yellow school buses. And there'll be a new bus and tram interchange at White City. Buses will run more frequently and for longer in the day. And you'll be able to park and ride at Sale Water Park, as well as at the Trafford Centre. But the package has not persuaded Trafford Council or the Trafford Centre to back the congestion charge. They're among the fiercest opponents of the plans.
Charge or no charge? Tell us what you think. Manchester's congestion charge station is BBC Radio Manchester.
You've been telling me, well, I started the morning, Alan, at Sale Leisure Centre, and to begin with, a lot of people were actually in favour of the congestion charge, although to be fair, many of those were retired and, you know, wouldn't be directly affected as far as they were concerned. But really, as the day has worn on, then more and more of the people I've spoken to, at least, just don't like the idea.
Well, I think it'll affect quite a lot of people, but personally myself, I just get the metro or the bus because I'm a student, but I know quite a lot of my parents and everyone I know says that it's going to be quite expensive travelling around like the local area and everything, so I think it's a bit of a bad idea, really.
People pay for the road to go on the road, really care. I mean, you get a lot of people who drive without insurance, no tax and all that. Well, do them, but not the bloody people who pay the genuine fees.
I probably am for, actually, provided that all of the promised improvements in public transport, particularly the tram, come off.
Well, I'm against it for one reason, is my wife picks up my grandchildren in Stratford, so that means she would have to go from Sale into Stratford under the motorway, so that's to pay again, come back out to Ames and drop one child off, then go back over the motorway to Eccles, and then back home to Sale, so she'd be paying 2 or 3 times, and that's twice a day.
Could she do that by public transport?
No, no way.
I'm against the congestion charge because my son used to work in Manchester and he wasn't very well paid, and that would have been taken out of his wages, the congestion charge and everything, and plus he had to park in Manchester and pay for that as well.
I don't think it's been thought through, really, because a lot of people work into Manchester. And it's no use these people saying, use the metro, because they'll usually take the car to the metro station and there's no car park. And all the side streets are full, bumper to bumper, with people who are trying to use the metro.
It's weird, isn't it, Matt? People, when asked about the congestion charge, they only decide on the basis of the charge. Nobody, or very few, seem to say, like the chap who said, well, my wife drives all over the world depositing our various grandchildren hither and thither. Not at one point did he think, now she won't have to because there'll be a yellow bus. and the kid's parents can put the kid on the bus like we used to do with our kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all this, I don't want to pay the charge, I don't want to pay the charge. Nothing to do with, I don't want to buy the benefits.
That's the thing. I mean, it's trying to find that balance. If you say to people, obviously, are you in favour of a congestion charge, then everybody's going to say no. You try and explain, and a lot of people do know. Some people clearly, even though they may well have had their information packed through, they clearly don't know exactly what public transport improvements they're going to get. And when you explain to them what they may get in their area, then, their attitude tends or can change when they realise exactly.
I mean, like that woman there who said, it's no good saying going to the tram, because you drive to the tram station, there's nowhere to park. Well, there will be, that's the point.
Yeah, but nevertheless, Alan, even when I've tried to explain to people what they will be getting, if they don't know, I think probably out of the people I've spoken to so far today here in Trafford, roughly speaking, about 60%, I would say, are against the idea, 20% are in favour, and 20% are kind of wavering, or they're unsure, or they just don't know what I'm talking about. I'm surprised the percentage isn't higher.
That's probably because they're not from round here. The Trafford Centre is populated by people who are in Trafford for the first time in their lives often. But there you are, good on you. Thanks, Matt. Matt Trewern is at the Trafford Centre. He'll be there till about 2 o'clock if you want to shuffle along and express your point of view, and that would be what we might call a recorded point of view. Obviously, if you would prefer, then all you have to do is telephone me and I'll take your point of view. 0161228 2255. And on the subject of the congestion charge, there's been a report, a report has been published this morning, and it is about the congestion charge in London. The London congestion charge is offered up as a success by many. Well, again, these things depend on where you're doing the counting and what it is you count. Traffic jams in London are just as bad now as when the congestion charge was introduced 5 years ago. The number of cars coming daily into the original charging zone into the Western Extension has dipped, Transport for London statistics have revealed. But roadworks and traffic management schemes have greatly reduced the road capacity in both zones. This has resulted in congestion levels or congestion returning to the levels experienced before the charge was brought in. So the traffic jams are still there, but they're being caused by fewer vehicles. And the reason that fewer vehicles are causing traffic jams is because the roads are undergoing an awful lot of work. Well, I suppose that's a lesson for us in Greater Manchester, isn't it? However, the lesson in Greater Manchester, or the position in Greater Manchester for the congestion charge, is slightly better if it goes according to the authorities' plan, on the basis that the argument goes that the majority, they can't say all, they never could, they might not even mean all. The majority of the transport development and infrastructure will be in place before the charge is levied. So all the roadworks, and there'll be plenty if it's coming in, there'll be lots and lots of roadworks. You just heard our rather etheric voice describing what they'd get in Trafford, that out in it. Well, it was all do, wasn't it, and all that, and all echoey. Anyway, the things that they'll be getting in Trafford, if the congestion charge is voted for and is then set to come into force, the things that will improve the situation in Trafford will be in place, in the main, before the charge is levied. 0161 228 2255. Colin in Bolton says, by the same principle of reason, he's back talking about the drugs here, by the same principle of reason that it would be inhumane for the state to put criminals to death, do the state not have the same moral responsibility to prolong human life by medical treatment where possible? Human life is invaluable. No, they don't. They have no such obligation to prolong human life at any price. And by that I mean any fiscal price. No, they don't. Death, illness, is the inevitability of society. All the other species, when they become ill, their illness almost always kills them. We're cleverer than that, and we have found ways of preventing illnesses from killing us. We've also found ways of delaying the time that the illness will kill us. But sometimes the cost of delaying the time that we'll die of our illness is, of course, considerably greater than that which can be funded. The great problem is a simple one. It's a very simple one. The National Health Service spends about £50,000 million per year in all its guises. £50,000 million a year. And it's not enough. So if the National Health Service decides to spend £30,000 keeping somebody alive for 6 months, who will in any case die of the illness they've got, that's £30,000, keeps them alive for 6 months, they die of the same condition, fine, cheap at half the price. But somebody's got to tell 10 people who need hip replacements that they can't have them yet because the money's being spent keeping a corpse alive. Just after 20 to 1, the news headlines. Michelle Adams.
8 police officers have been suspended from driving duties following a pursuit in Tameside during which a motorcyclist died. Workers at Bury Council say it's unjust that some of them are having their wages cut as part of a government drive to introduce equal pay. Some staff are seeing their salary cut by nearly £10,000. The funeral's taking place this afternoon of a 4-year-old girl who was killed in a house fire in Bolton. Manchester's weather, sunny spells, but also some showers, some of them heavy, highs of 20 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
If you're travelling on the M6, for the moment, traffic seems to be moving well between junction 23 and Haydock up towards junction 27 at Standish. Further south of that area, barrier repair works continue at junction 19 Knutsford, matrix sign set at 50 miles per hour. And in Daresbury, we're still seeing delays on Chester Road because of roadworks in the area, very close by to Daresbury Expressway. And if you can update me further this afternoon, call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Will Perry.
Well, let's start with the cricket. Lancashire are just over a quarter of an hour from lunch on day 2 of the county championship match with Sussex. Lancs, of course, started the day on with just a 197-run lead, and that's being reduced quite rapidly as we speak. But I always time the wickets nicely. Here's BBC Radio Manchester's Chris Malaban.
Sarge Mahmood has just given Lancashire hope here at Old Trafford. 84 for 2 now, Sussex, with the man to go, Luke Wright, who drove at Mahmood's delivery outside off stump. Luke Sutton taking the catch behind the timbers as the ball found Wright's outside edge. Lancashire have worked hard this morning without getting the dividends they perhaps would have hoped for, as Sussex have built up some decent partnerships, most notably Luke Wright in partnership with Chris Nash. They put on 53 for the second wicket. The other man to go this morning, opener Michael Thornley, bowled by birthday boy Dominic Cork for 5 as Lancashire made an early inroad. But at lunch, in 15 minutes' time, it'll be Sussex who are the happier unless Lancashire can get another wicket. In reply to Lancashire's 206, Sussex 84 for 2.
Cheers, Chris. Well, Lancashire's Andrew Flintoff is taking the first wicket for England under Kevin Peterson's captaincy, of course, in the 4th test with South Africa. Neil Mackenzie, the man to go for 17, caught behind by Alistair Cook. So the tourists 60 for 1 after winning the toss and electing to bat. Cristiano Ronaldo has confirmed that he'll remain a Manchester United player for at least 1 more year, but claims he wanted to move to Spanish champions Real Madrid. He says the best thing for both parties is for me to stay, but my desire was that United would accept my transfer to Madrid. Referee Peter Walton will replace Mark Clattenburg for United's Community Shield game with Portsmouth on Sunday. Clattenburg has been suspended by the FA following reports concerning alleged debts of companies connected to him. Andy Johnson has completed his move from Everton to Fulham for an undisclosed fee believed to be around £10.5 million. Johnson has signed a 4-year deal at Craven Cottage. So there's just 2 days to go until the start of the new Football League season. Rochdale boss Keith Hill says he's insulted that some people have written the team off after their playoff defeat to Stockport in May. They'll start at Grimsby on Saturday.
I always like a challenge, and the challenge is to improve on last season. I can understand pundits and predictions, but to disrespect myself and Dave, the players and the football club, to suggest that we're going to finish 15th and below, I find it very insulting.
Stockport County hope Stephen Gleeson will will play when they kick things off at Huddersfield on Saturday. The midfielder is on loan from Wolves and is poised to sign a new contract at Molineux. Here's County's assistant boss, Peter Ward.
Stephen's been offered a new contract by Wolves, and there's just a bit of a hold-up there. And if he signs a contract in the next 2 days, hopefully he'll be available for us on Saturday.
Well, don't forget to join us for coverage of Rochdale's trip to Grimsby and Stockport's game at Huddersfield, plus all of our local teams in the all-new Manchester Sports on Saturday. Jimmy Wagg will be here from 1 o'clock. One of Britain's gold medal hopes has been forced to withdraw from the Olympics just a day before the opening ceremony. Boxer Frankie Gavin is on his way home after failing to make the lightweight limit. The world amateur champion would have needed to weigh in at 60 kilograms on every day he competed in Beijing. Meanwhile, Andy Murray will play Liu Hee-sun in the first round of the Olympics. The British #1 could face Rafa Nadal in the quarter-finals. Golf's USPGA Championship gets underway in Detroit this afternoon. Padraig Harrington will be looking to add to his Open title, while England's Lee Westwood is another one of the favourites. Jockey Mick Fitzgerald has announced his retirement at the age of 38. Fitzgerald won the Grand National and the Gold Cup during his career. And finally, Bellevue Aces go to Ipswich in Sunday's Elite League this evening. And some more news about the cricket. The rain's come down, so Diane Oxbury did get the weather forecast right, but this is in Birmingham. England's game, the fourth test against South Africa has been rained off, so enjoy.
Well, you'll know more about this than me, but this boxer, when did he find out the weight limit for his boxing in the Olympics?
I think before he went to the...
Really? So he's known for a while?
He has, yeah.
Right.
He's been feasting.
He's been feasting, hasn't he? He's Mars-Bars his way out the Olympics. That's what he's done. What a cretin.
From the four corners of the earth they came to compete in the ultimate event. And for the victors, the prize was to be a medal of the purest gold.
The 2008 Olympics on the BBC starts tomorrow afternoon from 12:45 with the opening ceremony.
I've tried to explain. They don't get a medal of purest gold. They get a slab of iron with some yellow paint on it. Bill in Bolton, hiya.
Hiya, Alan. About this funding for drug treatment.
Yes.
I think people like the people we were talking about should be allowed to die.
What do you mean they should be allowed to die? They will die. You can't stop them dying.
What I mean to say is they shouldn't get the treatment. They should be allowed to die.
Well, why?
For a very simple reason. Money comes before our duty to care for people. The making of profit is all that matters. That is a fact.
Well, the National Health Service doesn't make a profit.
No, it doesn't.
So it's the National Health...
People do. And there is money around in the coffers to the point where private companies are making absolutely obscene profits.
Well, OK.
There is enough money to the tune of £4.6 billion, or was it 4.5 billion, with a B for Bravo, not million. And I think that is all that matters. That money should go into lining the...
Well, hang on, I'm not sure. I'm a bit confused here. Whose $4.5 billion are you referring to there?
A private health company who uses health service facilities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in the end, what matters, surely, is what it costs the health service to do a job. For example, if the health service can get that company over there to supply the services to the public at a lower cost than it would cost to provide them themselves, surely the fact that the company then makes a profit is a complete irrelevance, isn't it?
No.
What matters is...
No.
Well, hang on a minute.
Profit is all that matters.
But no, it's not all that matters.
It is.
It's all that matters to the company.
It's
that's
all that
for
matters
sure.
to our government, or our government wouldn't allow it. And we as a society...
Bill, let me put the question to you in a very, very simple way.
Right.
Let us... it doesn't matter what the number is, I'll invent one, OK? Let us say that to save the lives of 1,000 people...
Yeah.
If entirely funded and operated through the National Health, this 1,000 people would cost £1 million to save, OK?
Yes.
And then a private company comes along and says, actually, we can save 1,000 lives and you will only have to pay us $750,000. So you'll have money left to save some more lives.
Yeah, but that's a load of nonsense. The company wouldn't come along if it was going to make a loss. It wants to make a profit.
Well, yes, but it is clearly the case that some companies, because they are smaller, because they're more agile, because they only have to dib in and dib out, can do a job cheaper than others. Otherwise, they'd all charge the same.
Well, they're not doing a job cheaper, Alan. There's 4.6 billion floating around that I know of.
No, Bill, you don't know whether they're doing it cheaper. You just know that they're making that much money. In the end, if the National Health Service has to spend this £1 million, if they spend the £1 million through their own offices and doing everything themselves, they save 1,000 lives. But if they give £1 million to a private company to do exactly the same job, and that private company saves 1,200 lives, that's 200 people still alive for the same national health money. It doesn't matter whether the company makes a profit or not.
Well, I think that we should put taxes up. We should make rich people pay proportionally more towards the health service, and we should stop this corrupt system which is feeding on the backs of poor people.
All right, good on you, Bill. Thank you very much indeed. Bill says companies working for the National Health Service who make a profit, he didn't use this word, but he implied it very strongly, are despicable. That's rather like saying people who work in the National Health Service should do it for free. They should just get board and lodgings. Why should they make enough money to spend on holidays? No, they should do... No, that's profit. If you work for the National Health Service, in Bill's system, if you work for the National Health Service, you should do it at cost. Now, that's fine if you happen to be a multi-billion-pound company, but if that's the principle, then everyone that works there should do it at cost. So we'll provide you with a house, we'll give you food, we'll give you a uniform, you'll get no holidays, you get no time off, there'll be no going to the pub, no fags, no chocolate, you'll just be an automaton, really. We're not having any profits made out the National Health Service. Is that barmy? Or am I just playing games with his opinion? You tell me. 0161 228 2255. Anthony in Bramhall. Hi, Anthony.
Hi there.
What have you got?
Congestion charge.
OK.
I didn't know much about it, so on Tuesday when I was in Manchester, I went to the little box thing outside the town hall.
Oh, yes.
And I spoke to the guys in there, and I asked about what's going to happen for me. And effectively, it's all about how it affects the individual, really. Now, I hate driving. It's no fun anymore. The roads are too cramped and all that malarkey. So I'll happily get on a bus. Now, I had a job on a couple of weeks on Sunday at 9 o'clock in the morning in Manchester, and couldn't get there. I had to get my wife up and drive me to Hazel Grove, which is about 2-3 miles away, because there's nothing out of this village till 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Now, I can't be the only one working on a Sunday in this fine borough that we live in. And I find that quite implausible. I asked how come, and they said because it's not commercially viable, and it won't be commercially viable after 2013. And his advice was you should have driven.
Well, yes, there will always be journeys these days that cannot be done reasonably by public transport. They will, inevitably. And I think in the heyday of the bus industry and public transport industry, it was still that case. It was always that case. In the end, they have to provide the transport in the areas where it is most likely to be used. That's not to say that every bus should be full.
Oh, no. But, I mean, I live a cock's drive from Manchester Airport, which is quite a large employer around here. Surely there should be some way of getting to Manchester Airport from around here, either by 1 or 2 buses. And that's a 24-hour operation. Manchester's a 24-hour operation. If they're trying to get people out of the cars, then they've got to decide whether
they've attempted to do that to a certain extent, and it's been successful in that they've put the train line into Manchester Airport, and a lot of employees use that to go to work. But of course, the train line doesn't work at every hour of every day in order to, it's not a 5-minute service.
Well, no, he said it's that's a franchise and out of their hands. But before you decide whether something's commercially viable, you've got to dip your toe, really. You know, it's all right saying it's not commercially viable, but it's never been on. You can't get a train out of Bramhall till 10 o'clock either.
No, indeed, I'm aware. But would that make you... Would that make you vote again or in favour of the congestion charge? Given that the system isn't going to improve without more money in it, and that's the decision of, or at least that's what's being offered as a way of getting the money into it.
No one's being given all the facts. You're not actually being told, well, yeah, we'll improve the bus services, we'll improve the train stations.
Well, you are being told that, indeed, if you were listening just a few moments.
But improving the train station, is that a lick of paint? Is that more trains on the track? Is that what's that about? I mean, they could do that if they're looking at commercially viable operations. Stick a coffee shop at every train station. It's about the only place there isn't one now. In all these little train stations, let the rent pay for it.
Well, it doesn't work as easy as that either. They don't want them on railway stations because they can't make a profit. Indeed, the newsagents and the coffee shops that used to exist on railway stations have all been closing down because they can't make a profit. So I think that idea might fall a little earlier than it should do. Although, if we can get more people onto public transport, then they'll open again, because there's always somebody wanting to make a buck.
Exactly.
But it still leaves you say you're not being told the details, and yes, they're saying they will improve this and they'll improve that. I mean, one of the things that I found bizarre is on the two reports I've heard this week, the one for Trafford and the one that was on earlier in the week on Tuesday, both said there'll be more CCTV. And frankly, I'm not really sure what contribution that makes to traffic. There'll be more CCTV. Oh, that's great. Well, they'll picture me then. They'll have a film of me driving to work in my bloody car. Well, if they've got CCTV.
Why don't they paint them bright yellow and stick someone's logo on the side and get them to pay for it?
Well, that might happen yet anyway, the way things are going. But good on you, Anthony. Thank you very much indeed. Anthony thinks, well, he's been told that it doesn't matter what we spend on the congestion charge or not spend on the congestion charge, the bus service from Bramhall on a Sunday will still be crap. Today's gold medals are actually sterling silver, covered with a thin coat of pure gold. In other words, they're not gold. Well, they're not. That's like saying, I'm having a Mars bar because it's a chocolate bar. No. Cadbury's Dairy Milk is a chocolate bar. A Mars bar is a chocolate and some brown fludgy stuff and toffee bar. They're not, I'm sorry. If those British athletes and the ones that are actually going to win, you know, the Americans and the Russians and the Chinese, if the athletes who are attempting to win a gold medal are attempting to win it because, as the BBC has said, they are attracted by pure gold, they're going to be right peed off. They'd have been, maybe that's what the boxer did. Maybe that's the boxer suddenly found out that it wasn't going to be pure gold and said, sod it, I'll have a few pies. And that's why he got sent home. He's always going to be known as the tubby boxer, isn't he? Poor beggar. Christopher in Middleton, I asked the question why we haven't got a decent transport system now, and why we should trust the people who presided over the dire public transport system we have now, but wasn't the case when I was growing up in Manchester and using public transport for years to get to work as an electrical contractor on building sites around the northwest. The only hardship I ever suffered was the first day when I had to lug my toolbox around, but at least public transport was ample and affordable. Will the referendum vote be taken off the electoral roll, or will it be 1 per 1,000, as the congestion pack posted to us? 1 per household, sorry, as the congestion pack posted to us. Well, the referendum will be a referendum based on the right to vote or not vote will be based on the electoral roll. The authorities can't do it any other way. And it's a bit harsh to say that the people running the transport system at the moment have given us a crap one. They have. There's no doubt about that. They have. But in the end, they can only buy what money they've got. They can only spend what money they've got to buy the system. If the money's only available to buy a crap one, perhaps that's why they want more money. Just a thought. You tell me, though.
Join me, Becky Want, today from 2 on BBC Radio Manchester for the expert view on new movies and jobs for the week in the garden.
Even if the congestion charge comes in, we're never going to go back to the halcyon days of public transport as they were when they were run by British Rail and local councils running buses. It ain't going to happen.
95.1 FM.
DAB Digital Radio.
And the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, cancer patients won't be able to get 4 new drugs on the NHS because they're not cost-effective. Bury council workers are being hit with wage cuts because of new equal pay laws.
And rain stops play in the 4th Test. South Africa 64-1.
Well, this afternoon we've got a combination of sunny spells, scattered heavy showers and the risk of a thunderstorm. Top temperatures 20 Celsius.
And if you're using the trains, be aware that delays of up to 30 minutes facing train passengers between London Euston and Rugby due to problems with line-side equipment in the Wolverton area, so make sure you check before you travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Michelle Adamson. Doctors and patients groups have criticised a decision not to make 4 new kidney cancer drugs available on the NHS.
They're widely available in the United States, they're widely available in continental Europe, and the UK is becoming the outlier by not making these available.
That's Dr. Mike MacDonald from Oxford Biomedica, the company which has been carrying out trials of the drugs. He's criticised the medical watchdog NICE, who admitted that the treatments could give patients longer to live, but say they don't provide value for money. Jean Murphy from Salford has been given an anonymous donation to pay for the drugs so she can have more time with her family. Salford PCT rejected her plea for suitant 3 times. But Dr. MacDonald insists that means you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
If a patient manages to find some other funding to pay for the drug, the NHS essentially says, well, you're now completely on your own. Everything else that you need in terms of scans, investigations, anything else that would be the normal part of your care, you are now denied.
An investigation into the death of a biker in Tameside after a police chase is to be led by the Independent Police Complaints Commission. Steve Saul has more details.
54-year-old Allan Long was chased by traffic police in the Force helicopter after he failed to stop when asked to by officers late last Friday night. His bike hit a car in Stalybridge. The 18-year-old driver was only slightly hurt, but Mr. Long, whose 5 children, died several hours later. 8 police officers have now been banned from driving, and it's now been confirmed that the Independent Police Complaints Commission are to investigate. They'll be looking in detail at the pursuit and why it went on for 50 minutes.
The funeral's taking place this afternoon of a 4-year-old girl who was killed in a house fire in Bolton. Alana Mian and her grandmother Hamida Begum both died in the arson attack in June, and her mother Saima is still in hospital. Alana's funeral will take place at a mosque in Bolton, followed by a private burial. Workers at Bury Council say it's unjust that some of them are having their pay cut as part of a government drive to introduce equal pay. Some staff are seeing their wages cut by nearly £10,000. The council says it's following government guidelines. Paul Wilson is an IT worker who's going to lose £6,500 a year.
I can't afford to lose £500 a month. If I stay in the job that I'm in, I'll have to sell my flat and rent somewhere. I won't be able to pay the mortgage. I've got a child. I live on my own, so there's no other income coming in. I'm already looking for another job, to be honest.
The Bank of England has decided to keep interest rates on hold at 5% as expected. It's the 4th month running that they've remained unchanged. And Britain's biggest mortgage lender, the Halifax, says that house prices have suffered their biggest annual fall in nearly 16 years. They were down 1.7% in July, which means prices have slipped by 10.9% since the same month last year.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Will Perry.
Well, rain has stopped play just before lunch on day 1 of England's 4th Test with South Africa. Lancashire's Andrew Flintoff has taken the first wicket under Kevin Pietersen's captaincy at the Oval. Neil Mackenzie, the man to go for 17, caught behind by Alistair Cook. So the tourists are 64 without loss. Lancashire have made a couple of breakthroughs before lunch on day 2 of the county championship match with Sussex. They'll be looking for 8 more, and soon, Chris Mellaband.
They will. Lunch on day 2 here at Old Trafford. 97 for 2. The visitors, Murray Goodwin on 14. 14. Chris Nash on a fighting 52. 2 wickets for Lancashire this morning. 1 for Dominic Cork on his 37th birthday. He bowled Michael Thornley for 5, and Taj Mahmood had Luke Wright caught behind by Luke Sutton for 20. Overall, though, it's been Sussex this morning. Lancashire not able to extract the same kind of bounce and turn from this wicket that Sussex managed to yesterday. They're in need of urgent wickets in the afternoon. In good conditions for batting, Sussex going nicely. In reply to Lancashire's 206, they're 97 for 2.
Thanks, Chris. Cristiano Ronaldo has confirmed that he will remain a United player for at least one more season, but claims he wanted to move to Spanish champions Real Madrid. He says the best thing for both parties is for me to stay. My desire was that United would accept my transfer to Madrid. And finally, Bellevue Aces go to Ipswich in Speedway's Elite League this evening.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Heather Stott.
Well, it's an unsettled afternoon we've got ahead of us with scattered showers. They could be heavy at times. There is the risk of a thunderstorm during the afternoon, but there will be 1 or 2 bright or sunny intervals as well, and an awful lot of cloud around. Top temperatures 20 Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Hello. Oh, every time I do that, every time I say, I think I'm Mr. Red. Hello, I'm Mr. Red. I know since I know, of course, and no one can talk to us, of course, that is, of course, unless the yours is a famous Mr. Red. Correct, I'm not doing any more. It's too bad. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. Or, of course, you can text on 07786 206 951. The subject matter is yours. I don't mind one way or t'other. We had there's a great story. I've only seen it in the Express. No, that doesn't mean anything. The Express means even less. No, but I've only seen it in the Daily Express. It may be in the others, I've just not spotted it, and I did have a quick shufty to see if I saw it elsewhere. But I think it's an interesting story, and I think it's a cracker. I'll tell you what, I'm looking for it now, don't be at me. Here we go, listen to this. A packed holiday jet flew almost 5,000 miles across the Atlantic, despite a warning that there was a bomb on board. 3 scribbled notes claiming the flight was in danger were handed to cabin crew shortly after the plane took off from the Caribbean. But the pilot of the Boeing 767, with 292 passengers and crew aboard, decided it was a hoax and continued the trip. Well done him. Well done him. He's getting a bit criticised here, but I think well done him. He did exactly the right thing. There are far too many people who respond like, I don't know, lily-livered Nancy's to threats. And he was right. He was right. He said, look, we've done all the security stuff we should have done. People have been searched. They've had things put up the bums if they... Yeah, exactly. They've had all that done. They've gone beep, beep, beep. And they've had to turn the keys out. It's all been searched. It's all been x-rayed. It's a hoax. Let's carry on. Otherwise, we screw up the lives of 292 people. Good on him. I'm with him. Well done him. George in Saddleworth. Hello.
Good afternoon, Alan.
What have you got?
About this congestion charge.
Yes.
Now, I think everyone, well, I did anyway, I presume most people I spoke to did, we got a form from the Greater Manchester...
That's right, yeah, one per household is how it was referred earlier.
Yeah. Well, I certainly got one anyway. And it asks you for an opinion. You just put your...
Yep.
Tell your details, and it asks you for an opinion. Now, can I tell you what I wrote on it for my opinion, Alan?
Please do, yes.
Yeah. It says, in my opinion, you cannot compare Greater Manchester Transport with London Transport, mainly because London has a publicly owned transport system. Then you say that £3 billion will be invested in Greater Manchester Transport system. This begs the question, how much of this £3 billion will find its way into shareholders' pockets? I am in favour of the congestion charge if it leads to increased use of the public, in inverted commas, transport system. But sadly, I doubt if it will. Like previous investments of public money into privatised industry, it will only serve to swell the profits of private companies. There is only one solution to the problem of transport congestion, and that is a publicly owned, integrated transport system run in the interests of people who travel on it instead of people who want to make profit out of it. Amen.
Okay, I understand the point about profit, and we had a similar conversation earlier with Bill, I think it was, about the National Health Service.
That's right.
And it's weird. I've never understood this. Do you remember the 60s? When... Yeah, too well. We both hold that view, don't we, mate? But remember the 60s, when public transport was pretty damn good in this country? Do you think the buses that were made... Do you think the company that made the buses gave them to the council? Or do you think they sold them to the council?
I'm sure they did, because they sold them, like you said.
And do you think
when we live in a capitalist society.
And do you think when they sold them, they did so for profit?
I'm sure they did.
Okay. The fuel that the buses ran on, do you think the oil companies gave it to the council?
I'm sure they didn't, because it was privately owned.
So the idea of people making profit out of services has been with us forever.
Yeah,
when you get run over and they take you to the hospital in the ambulance, the company that made the ambulance made a profit. The company that made the fuel for the ambulance made a profit. The company that made the stretchers made a profit. When you got there, the doctor in his white coat, the bloke that sold the white coat made a profit. The bloke with the stethoscope made a profit. The bloke that put the bandage on, well, the bandage company made a profit. One of them was in Oldham, biggest bandage company on the planet, made a profit. Everybody makes a profit, otherwise it's not there.
Well, otherwise, Alan, you see, it's like you were saying, we live in a capitalist society. These things, like the National Health Service, are socialist principles, and they're trying to run within a capitalist society, and in a way, it won't never happen properly, because the National Health Service has got to rely, like you just said, on other people, and they're leeching on it, because that's where all the money is being sucked out of the National Health Service into private companies who provide the services and the drug companies, etc. When they brought the National Health Service...
So are you saying that the National Health Service and public transport in this company has always been crap?
No, well, it's always been part of a capitalist system, hasn't it?
Well, how could it not be? We're a capitalist nation.
That's right.
Would you prefer that we had systems like China or Russia?
No. Well, I mean, China and Russia. I mean, Russia's a different place now than what it used to be. And
on the face of it, yes. I'm not familiar enough either.
But if you look at the Chinese people, I mean, we're going on to China now. Of course, that's a different subject. But if you look at the Chinese people, they've made more progress in the last. I mean, they're alien to us altogether because they live in a different society altogether. But if you look at the amount of progress they've made since Mao Zedong's time came into power, it's tremendous. Where we haven't made, we actually went backwards during the Thatcher era. I mean, talking about ordinary people, the big multi-millionaires went forward, of course, but the rest of us went backwards.
I'm at a loss now because you put all those things on your form.
Yeah.
Will the opinion you expressed on that form cause you to vote in favour or against? And when you before you answer, whichever answer you give, the system will still be operated in the main by people who are in the business of making profit. Whether it's made better or indeed made worse, it will still be operated by people with the intention of making a profit.
I'm quite aware of that.
I know. I was just making sure everybody else was.
Well, you asked me a question.
Which will you go for or against?
I think on balance I'd go for the congestion charge.
Yeah.
But it's not there's no panaceas. There's no absolutes. You know, there are no absolutes. There's only the relatively relative interest of the majority of people. And at the end of the long day, there's no answer to it other than socialism, I suppose, or communism, not to go that far, you know. There's no answer within the present system, because each one's trying to claw each other's eyes out to get a bit more of the goodies, huh? And they're fudging the bill.
But you see, even in the communist states, I think profit is still partially a motivator.
Maybe, but you see, they've never had a communist state.
Well, I wasn't using it in its purest form. I was using it in terms of the Marxism, Stalinism, and all the rest of it.
I understand what you mean, Alan. Well, I'm sure it was, because that's why it wasn't communist. I mean, I'll give you an oxymoron. It's a communist dictatorship. It can't be no such thing, because if you have a dictatorship, communism means government of the community. And if you have a dictatorship, it's not of the community, so it wasn't communism. It was some form of state capitalism, if you like, or it was government of the Communist Party in Russia, if you're looking at Russia. You know what I mean?
But in the end, your vote will be in favour of the charge.
Congestion charge, I think, Alan, yeah.
And dare I ask why, in a short sentence?
I mean, somebody's got to make an attempt to do something about the level of the traffic congestion that's on the road. I mean, it's horrendous. I mean, I haven't got a motor car, and I don't drive, but when I do go in a motor car with friends and where I've been on the motorways sometimes in the evening, the traffic, it's absolutely unbelievable. You can't move, you know, there's that much traffic. Sometimes just crossing the road in a little village where I live, it's like they speak a different language to the side. I think
I think they probably do. They probably do in that part of the world, mate. Good on you, George.
Okay,
have a good day. 0161 228 222. I'm not going the other side of the road. They eat children there. 0161 228 2255. Bob in Wigan.
Your
With you in a minute.
Sunday morning lion with Mike Shaft.
In the secular world, they've been there for a while, all these, you know, these YouTubes. So is it a good idea to have sites like this specifically for people of a religious nature?
I think it's only right that the Christian community should embrace new technology, whatever it be. Makes sense to me.
Mike Shaft.
How long do you think it'll be before you'll be able to make a pilgrimage to either Iraq or Iran?
That's to do with the politics of the world as it is, and really to see how that freedom can be enabled to Baha'is.
Manchester's faith, spirit, and life's difficult questions with Mike Shaft.
Did it leave a mark on you?
Sunday morning from 7 on BBC Radio Manchester.
Hiya. 0161 228 2255. Bob in Wigan. Hiya, Bob.
Hello, Alan. Yes. With regarding the offshoots, if you want to call it, to this congestion charge.
Go on.
I live in Wigan, so it won't affect me at all. But a little comment.
It will.
It will.
Yeah, but go on. You'll get. There are things that are going to be happening in Wigan. Wigan. I was talking to a councillor in Wigan the other week, and she said that Wigan should all vote in favour of it. These are her words, not mine. Wigan should all vote in favour of it because Wigan only gets benefits. And no one from Wigan ever goes to Manchester anyway.
Well, we don't know where it is.
You don't want to know. It's a den of iniquity, Bob. Anyway, go on, mate. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
It's just a comment that I'd like to add. They're talking about improving public transport services, particularly the bus services.
Yeah.
Now, the route that I use, it's supposed to be a 20-minute frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it comes, sometimes it doesn't. It's a bit of hit and miss. Now, other people who live quite near me, we all use the same service. And I and several of them have made complaints to the particular bus service that runs this.
Yeah, the bus company, yeah.
Anyhow, they seem to have a stock answer. Now, we never hear any talk of improvement, meaning, take all these old bone shakers off the road. Not that kind of improvement, I don't think, is mentioned. But what isn't mentioned, definitely, is when one of our neighbours and myself ring this bus company, we get one answer only, which nobody else has mentioned yet. We can't get the drivers. Now, if you can't get drivers, there's no point in increasing or improving timetables.
Well, that's absolutely so. If you decide we're going to put on another 6 services and everybody goes, hooray! But they won't have drivers, boom!
That's right.
Inevitably.
But nobody seems to have taken this into account.
Well,
and I think
it's a very valid point. Where are the staff going to come from who will operate all these supposedly new services?
It's not everybody's cup of tea, I know that, with late shifts.
Well, it's a crap job in many
shifts.
respects. It's not a happy job. And it's, I mean, I was a bus driver and actually used to drive into Wigan bus station years ago from the Ribble. I wasn't working in Wigan, I worked on the Ribble in Skelmersdale, but we used to come to Wigan.
I remember it well.
And it's not it's not as well paid now, by comparison, as it were, as it was then. I mean, I'm sure the drivers of today earn more than we did then, but if you look at inflation and all that gubbins, we were, for a working bloke, it was quite a well-paid job.
Ah, yes.
Whereas now, for a working bloke, it's a less well-paid job, I think. You know, on sort of national averages and all that gubbins, it used to be quite well-paid, but it isn't anymore.
And in your day, you were just driving, you had a conductor, didn't you?
No, I was there at the sort of inception of the one-man operation. I drove a couple of buses that had conductors, but the one-man operation, we must call it one person now, mustn't we? Well, in those days we were rather less generous in our descriptions, and it was one-man operation.
I remember the Ribble garage in Walgate, Wigan.
Yeah.
But now they have to take money and operate this cash machine and ticket machine.
But it's not hard.
But if they can't get drivers, what's the point in?
Well, that's the thing. I'm with you all the way. It's no good printing a timetable that you can't fulfil.
No.
And it's no good if you can't get the buses to fulfil it. And one of the things they've done is that an awful lot of bus drivers now, if I remember correctly, have to work split shifts.
Well,
they were horrible in my day.
They had to do that on the old Wigan Corporation.
Yeah.
I remember them well, drivers and conductors. But I'm wondering if any other listeners have rang the bus company provider with a complaint, and if they got the same answer, with a complaint regarding the non-appearance of buses.
I think they all get the same answer, Bob.
Yeah.
Good on you, mate.
OK, Alan.
Good to talk to you. 0161228 2255. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we always end up now talking about the congestion charge, and it's always interesting because there's always another angle to it. And I hadn't thought of that, and it's a perfectly valid question, a very sensible question. It's all very well, Mr. Greater Manchester Passenger Transport Authorities, sinking and dancing and shouting from the rooftops as there'll be a lot more buses. Great! Who's going to drive the beggars? Because there's no one driving the ones at present. It is frequently the case that they say, sorry, that service gone because we can't get the staff. Hey, I know the feeling. It's just gone 1:20. News headlines. Michelle Adamson.
Up to 1,200 council workers in Bury have been told their wages will be cut in a pay review by up to £9,000. The council says it's been ordered by the government, intended to create equal pay and conditions. 8 police officers have been suspended from driving duties following a pursuit during which a motorcyclist died in Tameside. A 3-year-old boy from Lancashire had such bad cravings for sweets that he left his house in the middle of the night to get some. He found some money and walked to the nearest supermarket. He was discovered by a newspaper delivery driver. Manchester's weather, some bright spells this afternoon, but also some heavy showers, highs of 20 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Let's take a look firstly to the trains, and if you're heading between London Euston and Rugby from Manchester Piccadilly, then expect your journey to be delayed at some point. Delays of 30 minutes between those two stations at the moment because of problems with line-side equipment in the Wolverton area. And now to the roads, and barrier repair works continue on the M6 at junction 19 in Knutsford, slowing traffic down to a speed of 50 miles per hour. And in Daresbury, the A56 Chester Road still queuing up around the Daresbury Expressway because of roadworks in the area. Any further problems you spot, call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester.
With 2020 traffic through until midnight.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Marge from Altrincham says, would you think a more cost-effective way of getting the tram to the airport would be to send it on the existing line that runs through Altrincham and Chester when it reaches Ashley Station, then branch off to the airport? Surely it wouldn't cost as much as laying a new line on the proposed route. I think you might be right in the terms it wouldn't cost as much, but there'd be a couple of problems. The first one would be that you've either got to have heavy rail or light rail. You can't have both. So if you put the trams on that railway line, you would have to take the trains off them, so you would lose that train service. And also the benefit of the tram is that it stops at more places, more frequently, if you like, than does the train. So you'd have more stations. They're smaller stations, but you'd have more stations, so more people would have the option of using it. So that's the simple answer, unless I'm totally wrong, which... No, it won't. You'd be surprised to learn, but it wouldn't be the first time. Paul in Eccles. Hiya, Paul.
Hiya, Alan. The congestion charge.
Go on.
I know we're living in a world of where everybody jumps and thinks, conspiracy theories.
I'm all in favour of those, as you know, Paul. I consider myself to be the BBC's conspiracy theory leader.
Well, I'm guilty of it on this one, I think.
Go on.
It seems in Manchester at the moment, every available square foot of land or every old mill is converted into apartments and residential properties, which, if you've probably noticed yourself, and the work's being done and there's no one to fill these properties. I think the congestion charge would cure that, for one. Everybody'd have to move into Manchester, thus solving the problem. You'd soon fill all these apartments.
It's an interesting argument that the £5 a day, 25 quid a week, £100 a month would cause somebody to buy a £150,000 flat they don't need.
Well, I mean, there are families that live right on the bread line, as it were, and £150 just isn't budgeted for. If they can move and be paying the same mortgage, but they're living in the centre where the job may be.
Well, the apartments that have gone up in Manchester, one of the great criticisms is that they're not for families. They're 1- and 2-bedroomed flats for single people who might eventually get a friend.
Well, that's blown my theory out of the water.
They're not family homes that they're building. More's the pity, really. I think the city would be a better place if they were. I'm afraid it's more your 20-odd-year-old yahoo, and as soon as your 20-odd-year-old meets someone that he or she likes, they usually start looking for somewhere to live, and it often is outside the city.
All right, I'll go with that one then.
All right. It's a good try, though.
Yeah.
It was going so well for a while, wasn't it?
You cured me.
But are you going to vote for it or again it?
I've not made my mind up.
Oh, excellent. Oh, we like them best. I've not decided is always a good idea.
I mean, I live in Middleton myself, and I've had to travel to Eccles today, which I have to do a couple of times a week. Obviously, I had a cop for the charge today, but I don't know. I've not made my mind. I think it's inevitable. I think we're going to get it, whichever way the vote goes.
Ooh, dear me, now you are being a cynic. You are being it. What timescale would you put on that? Because of course they couldn't have a vote, people vote against it, and then bring it in a week Tuesday, could they really? Well, all hell would let loose.
I just think it's on its way.
All right, mate. Good on you. Paul said it's on its way. Perhaps what we need, and he's not the only one thinking that, and he's certainly not the only one to express it on these airwaves, as they say. But frankly, if we're going to get it anyway, why not be the first and get it when the government are trying to bribe us into getting it? Because that's what's going on here. Why not get it first and get all the bribery benefits? Or alternatively, why not just say, well, hang on a minute, all right, we're going to get it whatever, so let's do it nationally and just have road charging and be done with it. Yeah, you tell me. 0161 228 2255. Neil in Bebington, good on that pilot, you say. What if the jet had ended up at the bottom of the Atlantic and we later found out the pilot had received those notes? You'd be roasting the pilot on air if that was the case. I'm not sure I would. Maybe I would, I don't know. But I'm not sure I would, because I think from time to time we have to be prepared to suffer the consequences. And it's all very well, it won't be me at the bottom of the Atlantic, probably. But we have to suffer the consequences of telling the fools to go to hell. We do. We can't let the fools take over the world. The fools like those two half-wit women who tried to open the plane door and are now, well, OK, they're denying it, and that's fine, I don't blame them. But if they did do it, then they're a pair of cretins. And we should have a device whereby we can open the back and just throw the stupid cretins out. If they did do it. If they didn't, then somebody's lying and we ought to get that person. But those people who turn up at the airport and say, I've got a bomb in my bag. Fools. The people who leave notes hidden away on planes, it's usually the people who got off leaving a note for them as get on to screw up their day. Malicious, stupid fools. We can't let them run the world. We've got enough fools running it, and we voted for them. 0161228 2255. Ivor in Stretford, just a quick thought. Would the panel, which decides whether life-prolonging drugs are cost-effective, have second thoughts if the chairman or another member of the squad be forced to personally tell any of the patients asking for such medication face-to-face? No, sorry, you've got to die when we say so. Why do they always leave this onerous duty to our already stressed-out medics? Well, either the answer you're implying is because they're scared. I think if I was going to be told I'm going to die, I'd prefer somebody like a medic told me rather than a bloody accountant. Frankly, nothing against accountants. Every prison should have at least 10. Nothing against them at all. But I'd rather be told by someone who at least pretends he gives a toss rather than somebody who, well, probably just knows how many beans make 5. Wouldn't you? So, 8 police officers have been suspended from driving as a result of the motorcycle pursuit incident. Whilst, of course, procedures have to be followed and their standards of driving investigated fully, I've had officers under my supervision who have found themselves suspended from driving, and the consequences as regards service to the public are far-reaching. I doubt the public fully realise this. During the weeks and possibly months of their suspension, they'll be able to drive police vehicles. They will be unable to drive police vehicles, so not be able to patrol and respond to calls from the public by vehicle. They may be put on foot patrol or as a passenger observer with another driver, which of course is of some benefit to the public. However, those beat areas where it's necessary to patrol with a vehicle may probably now have to be policed by a mobile from an adjacent beat, thereby effectively doubling her workload and prolonging response times to incidents. Finally, there will probably be police vehicles left parked and unused at the police station because of a shortage of drivers. Well, OK, that would be the consequence. Whether that's a bad or good thing, well, clearly it's not a good thing. Although if it means that some of them will actually have to get out and be police officers, it's maybe definitely a good thing. But never mind, maybe definitely. What am I talking about? But it's definitely a good thing. Anyway, the bottom line is, should they be suspended? Well, if they broke the regulations, yes. If they disobeyed the orders, as has been implied in one newspaper, if they disobeyed orders to cease the pursuit, yes. But that doesn't mean the pursuit was wrong. Frankly, if a police officer asks a motorist to stop and the motorist doesn't do so, what else is the copper meant to do? Is he meant to just say, the bugger, and not do anything? Or is he meant to say, let's find out why he doesn't want to stop? Dave in Eccles. Hiya, Dave.
Hello, Alan. Just been listening to you on the congestion charges. You've got it wrong, dead wrong.
Go on. I'd have to, in order for my opinion to be wrong, I'd have to have one, but go on.
Well, you've nearly got one. Congestion charge just doesn't happen. A congestion is created. Congestion just doesn't happen. You know that yourself, don't you? You know, like I've been driving in Manchester for donkey's years, a taxi driver. I've seen congestion. I've seen all the roads closed, all the rerouting, all the one-way systems. I've seen it all. Now we've got another problem. A huge problem will happen when they open up the children's hospital. We've got 2 perfectly good hospitals near the motorway links, and they're going to take all that traffic into the middle of Manchester. It's created. It doesn't just happen.
Well, I appreciate it's created. It doesn't just happen. The queues on the M60 at Christmas to get to the Trafford Centre, that's been created by the building of the Trafford Centre. The life we lead, unfortunately, creates congestion because we put things centrally. We place them centrally. So obviously everybody then goes towards there. The traffic jams that surrounded Warrington for a decade were because of a IKEA shop that they opened there, and then Marks and Spencer's. You're right, congestion is created, but that doesn't mean that you have, as an authority, a choice but to create it. I take your point about the Children's Hospital. On those measurements, it's a balmy place to put it. But equally, if you happen to be an individual with a poorly child and you live anywhere other than North Manchester, you're going to think it's a cracking idea, having it in the city centre.
No, it's not a cracking idea at all.
Well, you're going to think that if you've got a poorly child and you live elsewhere than North Manchester, then you're going to want to get to it more easily than you can presently, and the centre of Manchester is more easy to get to than elsewhere. It's going to be a beggar to park, but it's more easy to get to.
It's creating more congestion.
Well, yes, I understand that, but I'm not arguing with you that it creates congestion, but it's very difficult. I mean, maybe you want people to use taxis. Don't blame you, mate. It's very difficult. If you live in South Manchester and you want to get to Booth Hall, it's a pig of a journey.
I'm not a taxi driver. I'm a private hire driver.
All right, my apologies. For this purpose, they're more or less the same thing. For this
No, they're not. They're not.
No, I know they're not. I said for this purpose.
Yeah.
That's why I said it, to differentiate between saying, yes, pedantically, they are the same. That's why I used that phrase.
Well, if you let me finish, I'll explain it to you.
Well, explain it to me, but whilst you're going about it, tell me how it makes it harder for someone in South Manchester to get to a children's hospital if they move it to the city centre.
There's no motorway links in South Manchester, you know that.
Well, there won't be any, whether it stays in and I think the M60 counts as a motorway, but don't let it fool you, because I think it does go south of Manchester. I may have been misled. Maybe a taxi driver told me.
Maybe. A black cab, private hire.
I do know the difference. Let's not go there again.
I'm not saying the difference. I mean, an Hackney cab isn't going to be charged in Manchester congestion.
Yes.
A private hire is.
So?
Well, that's the difference.
So?
I don't do a service like a black cab.
I'm not sure what point you're making, other than it's going to affect you and not them.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And also,
I thought you were going to explain how congestion was created.
How it's created?
Yeah.
I just have explained to you.
Yes, I know, but if you remember,
it's so
I offered to you the question of what is the alternative. If you leave the Children's Hospital in North Manchester, that's unfair on the people of South Manchester. I asked you to address that, and you haven't done so. But you don't have to. It's a free world.
No, I agree with you. But to address that point, why didn't they build an hospital in South Manchester, not in the middle of Manchester, not in city?
Well, then we'd have two if we are not to pass the problem from the south to the north.
I can understand
and
what you're saying, Alan.
The whole point about the Children's Hospital Service, whether this is right or wrong, I don't know. It's not for me to say. But the whole point was they wanted to get children's health services on one site for very, very good clinical reasons.
I know that.
Right.
I understand that.
So once you've made the decision that it's better for the kids, there'll be fewer of them dead. Once you've made the decision that it's better for the kids to have one site, you then have to decide where to put it. And if you put it anywhere other than centrally, you, if you like, make it more difficult for everyone that doesn't live in the bit you put it.
So what you're telling me, you can't put one north outside the city centre, you can't put one south outside the city centre.
Well, mathematically, that's impossible if your decision is to have two. Is to have one. If, of course, your decision is to have two, then you can. But if you're only having one, then you can't have one in the north, one in the south, and because you've used the word one, count it as one. Because in most people's eyes, whether they're private hire or Hackney, 1 and 1 actually makes 2.
Yeah. Right, Alan, thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure. 0161 228 2255. Just in case you didn't catch it, hackney driving is entirely different to private hire driving. Just in case you didn't get there. All right. OK. And it isn't inevitably the case that hackney drivers drive black cabs, because in some of the towns in Greater Manchester, hackney drivers drive ordinary saloon vehicles, which is even more confusing. I know. The world is populated by officialdom with a determination solely to confuse us. It's hell on earth sometimes. Christopher in Middleton says, we're expected to trust the likes of Pat Carney and co with a £3 billion loan. These are the same people who supplied tankers full of lager to mad jocks attending a football match in Manchester, then complained about them getting drunk and violent. Pull the other one, it's got bells on, says Christopher in Middleton. Just for the record, the loan will be £1.5 billion. To the likes of you and me, £1.5 billion, £3 billion, frankly, once a loan gets over 25 quid, it's all same to me, unpayable. But £1.5 billion, £3 billion, there are people who think they're quite different. It's 20 to 2. BBC Radio Manchester News headlines with Faye Rusker.
Up to 1,200 council workers in Bury have been told their wages will be cut in a pay review by up to £9,000. 4 of the country's most overcrowded prisons are here in the northwest, according to figures released today. Preston, Old Course, Agecroft and Lancaster jails are listed as severely overcrowded. And former atomic kitten Kerry Katona has been given a further 2 weeks reprieve at the High Court in her bankruptcy battle with the taxman. She owes £157,000. Manchester's weather, scattered showers with some bright spells, highs of 20 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
Let's start firstly on the roads, and everything seems to be moving fairly well along the M60. I can't see any major delays on the Ring Road for the moment. Again, M66 traffic moving fairly freely from the Edenfield bypass all the way down to the M60 at junction 4 of the M66, which of course is Sinister Island. And now to the Pennines, and just taking a quick peek to cameras between junction 23 Huddersfield through towards junction 18, again at Sinister, and again all seems fairly quiet. Now just check the live departure boards as well from services from Manchester Piccadilly through to London Euston, and generally everything seems to be on time. Of course, we have been having reports over the past hour or so of 30-minute delays because of line-side equipment in the Wolverton area, so best really to check before you travel if you are heading from Manchester Piccadilly through to London Euston using Virgin Train services. Don't forget though, if you can update me further, make sure you call in if you can on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Bill Wright.
Sussex have fought back against Lancashire on day 2 of their county championship match. BBC Radio Manchester's Chris Malaband is watching at Old Trafford.
We've just resumed after lunch. Sussex 99 for 2 after 35 overs. Chris Nash going really well on 54, and with him danger man Murray Goodwin on 14. So the Martlets trail by just 107 runs. Lancashire in desperate need of quick wickets this afternoon. Just 2 to fall this morning. Dominic Cork bowling Michael Thornley for 5, leaving Sussex at 18 for 1. And then Luke Wright went for 20, caught behind by keeper Luke Sutton off the bowling of Sarge Mahmood. Yesterday, of course, off-spinner Ollie Rayner went through the Lancashire batting with 5 for 65. Lancashire will be hoping Gary Keady can do the same to Sussex this afternoon. Latest score at Old Trafford, Sussex 99 for 2.
Kevin Peterson is captaining England for the first time today. He lost the toss in the 4th and final test against South Africa at the Oval. The tourists chose to bat, and Andrew Flintoff has made the first breakthrough for England.
Flintoff bowls, and that's edged and caught by Cook at third slip. High to his left, perhaps shoulder high, perhaps a little bit higher than that. It's the third opportunity that Cook has had today to take a catch. And Flintoff breaks through, and he really deserved that.
Having already won the series, South Africa are currently 72 for 1. Cristiano Ronaldo says winning the Champions League is why he wanted to leave Manchester United for Real Madrid. The Portuguese winger will now stay at Old Trafford, but he admits that he felt he needed a new challenge after winning everything he could with United. Referee Peter Walton will replace Mark Clattenburg for United's Community Shield game with Portsmouth on Sunday. Clattenburg has been suspended by the FA following reports concerning alleged debt of companies connected to him. Bolton boss Gary Megson has warned that new signing Danny Shitu will have to fight for his place. The 27-year-old defender completed a move from Watford to the Reebok this week. Andy Johnson has completed his move from Everton to Fulham for an undisclosed fee, believed to be around £10.5 million. Johnson has signed a 4-year deal at Craven Cottage. Stockport County hope to have Stephen Gleeson playing when they start the new season at Huddersfield on Saturday. The midfielder is on loan from Wolves and he's poised to sign a new contract at Molineux, as County's assistant boss Peter Ward explains.
Stephen's been offered a new contract by Wolves and there's just a bit of a hold-up there. And if he signs a contract in the next 2 days, hopefully he'll be available for us on Saturday.
Rochdale's Gary Jones says there will be no hangover from last season's playoff disappointment. They get their League 2 campaign off at Grimsby on Saturday.
That was gone a week or so after the event, really. I think the lads have come back really focused. They've worked their socks off in training. We've had decent games over the pre-season and we're geared up ready to go now, and hopefully we can start off with a win.
Don't forget to join us for coverage of Rochdale's trip to Grimsby and Stockport's game at Huddersfield, plus all of our local teams in the all-new Manchester Sports on Saturday. Jimmy Wagg will be here from 1 o'clock. The Wigan coach Brian Noble has named his 19-man squad for the trip to France to face the Catalan Dragons. Darryl Goulding and Paul Prescott both come in, but Sean O'Loughlin is missing with a shoulder injury and Gareth Hock is suspended for the game. One of Britain's boxers, Frankie Gavin, is on his way home. That's after failing to make the lightweight limit for the Olympics. And finally, Bellevue Aces go to Ipswich in Speedway's Elite League this evening.
This is the Northwest's biggest sports station. This is BBC Radio Manchester.
St Helens have booked a return to Wembley Stadium.
No one covers more of Manchester sports, which is why we're the Northwest's biggest sports station. The all-new Manchester Sports, Saturday at 1. BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. 0161228 2255. Neil in Bebington, you've put the question, how much is a life worth per week? I don't have the arrogance to place a figure to the question, so I'll try to make a point of equivalence. According to the government, the price of keeping a life a week is the minimum wage, or less if you're on benefits. Surely we should be asking the government, how much is the average life worth a week? Fair enough. Ask away. Robert in Eccles, hiya.
Hiya. Hiya. 2 questions. The first one might be a bit cynical. Is the sudden explosion in roadworks around Manchester at the moment meant to influence the debate that we're having on charging?
I don't know. Suffice to say that the explosion in roadworks, if there is such a thing, has not been created by the local authority, who don't dig the holes.
Right, OK, well, that's fair enough then, but the East Lancashire Road in Eccles, there are about 5 different groups of roadworks I have to go through.
It's a nightmare.
And they've all appeared in the last 2 weeks. So anyway, that was just my cynical
All right,
view.
well, nothing wrong with cynicism. We're very much in favour of it, Satya.
My more serious view is this. I pay 50% tax on some of my income, along with a lot of other people. I'm sure you're one of them. OK?
I didn't think anybody paid 50. I thought 40
yeah, they
was
do.
I thought 40 was the top limit.
40, and then you pay another 10 in
right, okay, but you said income.
Insurance, so
you said income tax. I didn't realise you were including national insurance.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
It's tax.
It is a tax, yes, but
and then I have to buy petrol to get to work, and I think
You do, yeah.
I'm not absolutely sure, but the duty on petrol is in the 80% mark.
could well be, yes.
And I've already paid 50% of some of my money, and now I'm paying 80%. I then pay road tax on my car. And I don't think they put that road tax money back into the roads because the roads are full of holes. I'm looking at several of them right now as I'm talking to you. But now they want me to pay tax to get into work, to earn the money, to buy the petrol, to pay the road tax. And it just seems, I'm in favour of the charge, actually. I might make out that I'm not, but I actually am. I think we should have the charge, and I'm willing to pay more if I use the road more, and I probably do, so I probably will. I'm willing to pay more for everything that I use in more quantity than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Or there needs to be, it's like VAT. VAT should be the only way we get taxed, because then if I don't want to buy products with the money I go out and earn, I won't have to pay for them. I won't have to pay the tax. So that's my point, really. We're taxed every way up. And it's the people who earn the most money who seem to work, I don't mean to be mean the way I say it, but who seem to work the hardest and who have the most ambition, who seem to be taxed on every single thing that they do.
Well, there are people working as hard as you are.
Oh, much harder.
For considerably less, and therefore paying less tax. So the equation that the people who work harder pay more is wrong. Yeah. The people who earn more pay more. Yeah. That's correct. Whether it should be or not is a matter for others. But that's the principle. And our society decided some years ago that well, first of all, they decided that the rich should help to pay for the lives of the poor. It's changed slightly now in that there are very few truly poor people in our society, and it's not just the truly rich that are paying. It's now
the rich who pay, it's the middle band.
Well, it's I was going to say it's the better off paying for the less well off, which is not quite the rich paying for the poor. But to equate it to work done, it doesn't quite work out that way. Yes, there is another way of taxing people, and that way of taxing is taxing according to usage. And one of the ways we do that is with, you mentioned it, the car tax or the fuel tax. The more fuel you use, the more tax you pay. Yeah. The people who are bleating most about that at the moment are the people who actually use more and are bleating like hell. I mean, lorry drivers and people like that. So they start bleating if you do that, or haulage companies. They bleat just because they exist, I think, sometimes. So it is, on the face of it, a fairer way to tax. But I'm not sure that many would swallow it, because in order to achieve the levels you're talking about, you would keep all of your income. There would be no tax, there would be no national insurance, none of it. You'd keep your in excess of 50,000 a year, and you would then pay 4 times the price for some goods.
That's right, but I'd only pay for what I want.
You would only pay for what you use, yes. That is absolutely so. But the money left in the pocket of the poor, and we'd have to find some way of adjusting that, the money left in the pocket, you would go to the shop and buy, I don't know, I mean, food's free of tax at the moment, generally. But you would go to the shop or to the petrol station and pay 10 quid for a litre of fuel and think, well, that's all right, I'm earning 50 grand, I can afford it, and it's the only tax I pay. But the person who is earning considerably less than you wouldn't be able to afford fuel, even though they would keep the income that they currently pay on tax. But of course they pay at a lower rate than you for their tax, so they would be benefiting considerably less than you would benefit.
Yeah, I'm not bothered about it. I'm quite
well, I know you're not bothered about it.
Because I'm a bit selfish there.
Well, there's nothing wrong with selfishness. It's made Britain great. That's why we're like we are.
You know, we attain at a level of education, or we work harder and longer, and some people do work longer.
But that education you achieve the level of, there's somebody paying for that, and it ain't you.
Well, absolutely, and I'm not talking about degrees in university.
No, just the ordinary education. Somebody's got to pay for it.
But the point is, the people who do the most work is the equation you threw back at me before. The most work isn't what I mean. The toughest work.
Let me offer you the luckiest work.
Go on then.
Well, that's it. Full stop. The luckiest.
No, the luckiest. I'm a salesperson.
Yeah, so fine. You say your work.
People wouldn't want to do it.
You say your work is tough. Depends what you compare it with.
I enjoy it.
Well, it doesn't matter whether you enjoy it. I'd rather be a salesman than I would be a sewer attendant. I'd rather be a salesman than I would a policeman. Your job's tough. You've got to drive a long way. You've got to talk to people you don't like. You've got to flog them stuff. I'd far sooner that than talk to somebody who's going to kick the crap out of me. So it depends on how you measure the job. You've got a cushy number, mate, by comparison to many others.
I do enjoy it, and I would do a different job if I didn't enjoy it. But what I'm saying to you is, it is rewarded as well as it is, possibly too well, but I'm not the judge of that, but it is rewarded as well as it is because other people don't want to do it, right? And that's why sales is probably one of the best paid jobs in the world, because other people don't want to do it, right? Now, so therefore, and probably people don't want to do sewage work either, and I imagine they're quite well paid.
Well, you're wrong.
Well, I'm sorry. I'd like them to be paid more then. I'm not that selfish. People should be paid according to the job that they do, and if no one else wants to do it, they should be paid in accordance with that.
Well, you see, that's fine if you have the ability, and much of it is your birth that brings that about, but if you have the ability to pick and choose, then yes, people are going to compete for your attentions. But frankly, there are some people who just have to work, and they are the majority who just have to get up in the morning and go out and do something that they don't like and don't enjoy, and the only choice they have is another job that they don't like and they don't enjoy, or even another job that they don't like and they don't enjoy, and they have to go out and do that for the minimum wage because the options available to them are few, and frequently and most often it is the case that they have no ability to change those options, and the employer knows that. You're a salesman, you know better than me that it's a lot easier to sell stuff that people want than stuff they don't want. And frankly, if I'm employing people who've got not much choice in the job market, why should I pay them a lot just because the job's crap? It's supply and demand, mate. I don't have to tell a salesman that. It's supply and demand. And the jobs...
That's exactly what I'm saying. So you don't want to go down the sewers, I don't want to go down the sewers, so the poor guy who's going to have to go down the sewers needs to be rewarded.
No, because you're working with your salesman's head, and that is, if I need people to go down the sewers and it's a crap job, I'm going to have to pay them a lot more to attract them to it. No. I just have to sit here because there's some poor bugger who's hungry enough to have to do it, so I can pay him peanuts, because he doesn't have a choice.
Alan, do you think nobody's got a choice? We all just have to be pushed down holes and knocked into the right.
No, I didn't say nobody's got a choice.
Every single person's got the right to lift themselves and to change their attitude.
But not everybody's got the ability. Not everybody's got the ability. Some people just aren't actually clever enough. Some people don't have the self-driven personality that others have. Maybe they should have. Maybe the world's a crap place because of it. But they've not.
Well, I don't
because
know.
People are different. We can't all be bleeding reps.
No, I wouldn't want you to. Certainly not. I don't want anybody to be cut on my behalf. But
Robert, you're one of you seem to be one of those people who believes that everybody has control of their own destiny.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, I'll grant you. Practically, no. Most people end up in the shithole they're shoved into.
Oh, well, they don't have to be shoved into it.
Yes, they do!
No, I'm not accepting that, Alan.
Well, OK, you're not accepting it. Look, you're a salesman. The last thing you're ever going to accept is the bloody truth.
Oh, that's a terrible thing to say.
But accurate. Red Jim Berry. I've not got you on here to laugh. You're supposed to talk.
I know that. Well, just very quick, Alan.
Go on, mate.
I know you're going to be close. Over the years, I've been watching the traffic coming flight between Bury and Manchester.
Yeah.
And I think I can cure you don't need a congestion charge for one simple reason. Take the cretins off who decide to put all the white lines on the road. Because we used to have 2 lanes of road space available for traffic going from Bury towards Manchester. Now we've got bus lanes, we've got hatches in the middle of the road, we've got little parking zones, we've got cycle lanes. And now the road between Bury, say for instance, and Whitefield is just now single lane.
Yeah, the road for cars is considerably less.
It used to be twice as wide as that, and you could get twice as many cars up it. Now it's absolutely chock-a-block. The side roads are perfectly okay. Side roads, now what they've done is they put little barriers on. So I used to be a TV engineer, and I could go from A to B without even touching the main road.
Yeah.
But you can't now because you go down the road and there's a road of bollards across the end of it. Can't get through there, right?
Well,
one cure would be to take all these guys away who design all these traffic calming.
Well, you might be right. The theory behind it, of course, was that if we give the buses a freer and therefore less fettered journey into town, it would be advantageous to travellers to use them.
Yeah.
You're saying it hasn't worked out that way. Good on you, Reg. I shall be back tomorrow, of course. Becky Want is next. Have a cracker. Ta-ra now.
Summer's over, football is back on BBC Radio Manchester.